We're very lucky to have been able to bring together a panel of senior leaders from some of Australia's prominent corporate organisations. They're here today to take a closer look at the role leadership plays in building and sustaining a culture of giving in a corporate organisation. Good to Give's interim CEO, Sue Murray, will host this discussion. I encourage you to take part in this final opportunity to post questions to our panel. So I'm now going to hand over to Sue so she can introduce the panel to everyone here. Over to you, Sue. Sorry, I'm just going to step back in there. Sue, you're on mute, so I need you to go from the top again, if you don't mind, just to kickstart that presentation.
Technology expert, not. So let's try it again. So welcome to this session, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are all meeting and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm on the land of the Wongal people and on the Eora Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge and pay respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us this afternoon. So in this panel, we have 3 people who are joining us this afternoon to discuss this concept of leadership and a corporate giving culture. So Mark Benny is from Accor. He is the General Manager of Indigenous and Community Investment. Sarah Collier is from KFC, and Sarah is the Head of Social Impact and Media Relations. And then Nikki Tracy is from Australia Post, and Nikki is the Head of Community. So we have 3 very experienced and stick-minded experts who are here to share their insights on leading a culture of giving within their very large businesses. And as we discuss this today, I want you to keep in mind, though, that there are formal and there are informal leaders. Think about that go-to person in your organisation or your community. They're not always the person who is formally designated as the leader. And the other consideration that you need to think of during this discussion is about culture. As we will hear, culture of giving is one that is built from within. So it needs to be an intrinsic way in which we do business. So on that note, let's head over to our experts and speak with each of them about their thoughts on leading a culture of giving within their organisation. So Sarah, let's start with you. And let us know in KFC, how has your organisation demonstrated a culture of giving and the role that senior leadership has played not only in developing that, but most importantly, in maintaining a culture of giving?
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, I mean, for us, just a little bit of background on KFC. We have more than 700 restaurants with around 40,000 people, but 90% are under the age of 25. And so for us, it's really around making sure that when we look at giving, that it's embedded all the way through from our leadership, right the way through to our team members. Because if you have an engaged cohort of team members who are customer facing or really doing predominantly the heavy lifting on that fundraising, then they're going to have the passion to keep doing it. And I think I wanted to share with you, during this last couple of years, we've had a really tough time, all of us, with the pandemic. But what was interesting to us is when we pulled back on our fundraising within our restaurants during the height of the pandemic, our team members were actually reaching out to us and saying, we want to fundraise. And that was a really interesting insight to show that, fundraising, corporate giving, having that engagement with your local community actually can really help young people to have a purpose above themselves, away from the stresses of home or a pandemic and all of those things. So I think, it really proved to us that the culture of giving is absolutely firmly embedded into both our leadership team all the way through to our restaurant teams, which is fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah. And Nikki, what about you at Australia Post? What's been important in your senior leadership's team in regard to developing and maintaining that culture of giving?
Thanks, Sue. And look, I think Sarah is right. It's been such an incredible few years for everyone around the world. And for us at Australia Post, we're a really unique organisation in that we have both a commercial purpose and a social purpose. And our role is really to connect people to each other and to the world every day. And so, with over 4,300 post offices around the country and a workforce of 75,000, all of whom live and work in the local communities in which we operate, it's really important that people have the chance to be able to give and to help their local communities thrive. Our executive and our senior leadership team are absolutely committed to delivering on both our social and our commercial purpose. And they really champion the community strategy and our focus areas of disaster support, mental health and literacy, day in and day out, whether it be talking to our people, talking to our customers, talking to the media. For us, it's ground up. We have our frontline people who are going above and beyond every day in supporting their local customers and communities. And it's top down, and it's making sure that our senior leadership support our frontline people to be able to help at a local level.
And so I guess with that very distributed workforce and geographic spread, that concept of informal leaders is probably also very important in your organisation.
Yeah, every day I am privileged to hear incredible stories about what our frontline teams do that is well and above their day jobs, be it a postie rescuing a cat from a tree or, taking someone's shopping home for them because it's too heavy, all the way through to, our post offices opening up for showers and power in the wake of a natural disaster for local communities. We have an incredible amount of informal leaders and people who step up when the time is needed, no matter what the circumstance, to support their own teams and our customers and the community.
Excellent. And Mark, let's hear from you. What about your leadership and the importance of their role in developing and maintaining that culture of giving within the Accor Group?
Yeah, thank you, Sue. I suppose it's part of our day-to-day operations and culture that we're giving people service, experiences, food and beverage, looking after their events and conferencing. So it really is part of the DNA at Accor that we're giving. We were very fortunate throughout the pandemic that the global executive team forewent some of their potential directors' money and put together a fund that was dedicated to looking after our team members throughout the globe. In fact, in Australia, we've had over $6.5 million worth of grants given out to team members and family members and suppliers in distress as a result of COVID. So it's never really stopped. And if anything, it accelerated because it's the first time we've actually run a grants program compared to some of the other fundraising and giving initiatives that we've run over many, many years. So it's certainly still present. It's part of what we do. We're working much harder on going back to a place of importance within communities. So not just being a bricks and mortar establishment in the heart of the CBD, but really starting to foster relationships directly with communities. And whether that be with our First Nations program, whether that be just by providing some rooms for a fundraising initiative for a charity partner that's based locally or otherwise, we're in a very fortunate position in that we have something to offer beyond just cash to members of the community. And so we take that really seriously, and we enjoy that relationship with the community.
Yeah, excellent. That whole concept of giving can be of time, talent, and treasure. And all of those things matter to communities and to charitable organisations. I think the other area, I guess, that is interesting to explore is what do you see as being a true culture of giving, and what does it look like, and how does that commitment impact an organisation and its employees? Sarah?
Yeah, I guess for me, when we look at our foundation, we made sure that our foundation really focused on something that was close to our heart. And I think that's important, because if you're not finding that connection within your organization, it's hard to get your people to be behind the cause and look to fundraise. So for us, we always were focusing on confidence, and because we know we give our team skills and confidence through the work that they do and the training they receive. But then as we started to come into the pandemic, we started to obviously look at mental health in young Aussies as a major, it's almost like the shadow pandemic we're looking at now, right? And so we pivoted our foundation to focus on mental well-being in young Aussies. And we do this through 3 charity partners who are incredible: Black Dog Institute, Reach Out, and White Lion. So what we do is we're so much taking that inside out approach in terms of we provide our people with lots of support on mental well-being, but now it's their chance really to help other young Aussies outside the walls of our restaurants. And that's been really powerful in really getting them engaged and motivated, and understanding that it's not just shaking a tin, it's around, actually, my impact is going to be so great if I raise $5 for the foundation this week. That impact, and showing that impact through bite-sized information that we share through different channels like Yammer, which is a social media channel our teams use, so that they're really engaged and informed. Because there's nothing worse than when you raise money and you have no idea what the impact is. And that has really helped us to, I guess, cement the cause and the impact that their donations are having, and how they are really making a difference to other young Aussies. And so for us, it's the culture from leadership through all the way through, and making sure they feel that it's an engaged foundation that they really understand.
And I think given, your staffing profile, the choices that you've made are very closely aligned to what you would see as many of the interests of the young people that work with you.
Absolutely. And we've also found that we've been able to utilize our charity partners and some of the incredible programs and support they have to help support our team members. So again, they're seeing firsthand what those programs do and support.
So it's got there's an iterative process that goes on.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Nikki, what about with Australia Post? What do you see as a culture of giving, and how has that built a commitment or a commitment to that? How has that also engaged your employees?
Thanks, Sue. Well, with the diversity of the workforce that we have, I mentioned earlier 75,000 people across the country. I think there's more than 120 nationalities represented in our workforce. It's really important for us to offer a diversity of ways that our people can get involved and give. Because for different people, they have different time commitments, they have different financial commitments. So for us, it's about, as Sarah mentioned, it's about finding the issues that matter to our people, because we know that when our people get behind the community programs, that's what brings them to life and makes them successful. So about 18 months ago, or 24 months ago now, actually, we did a huge piece of work where we talked to all of our stakeholders about where did they feel Australia Post could really create community impact, and what were the issues that really mattered to our stakeholders. And, it was amazing across our people, our customers, our not-for-profit partners, our executive. We actually landed on 3 areas that everyone felt should become the focus of what we were supporting, which are those areas of mental health and a partnership with Beyond Blue in that space, disaster support, and our role in all phases of disaster with Red Cross, and then children's literacy tied back to letter writing and literacy from an Australia Post perspective. So with those three focus areas, we've then developed numerous ways for our workforce to get involved. That might be through payroll giving, our workplace giving program. We have a reasonably new program that we stood up about 3 years ago that we call our People of Post Grants program. And that's where a workforce member can apply for a grant for a local community group that they're connected with. Could be the local footy club, could be a community garden, it could be the local nippers, and our staff can apply for a grant for that organisation of $500 to celebrate and to show the value that we take in our people being part of local community organisations and giving back to those local community groups. So that's been a hugely successful program for us. This year, I think we gave out about 350 grants around the country. Really fantastic way of getting our people involved. And then we have a lifeblood program. So we really want to offer that diversity to our workforce to be able to find ways for everyone to participate and to be able to support and give. And then I think, just as Sarah said, the importance of communicating the impact of not just what individuals are doing, but what we're doing as an organisation nationally and the change we're making and the impact we're making is really fantastic for our engagement of our people.
I'm going to come back to impact measurement in a few minutes, so be thinking about that. But let's have a chat there with Mark about Accor and its commitment to a giving culture and how that has impacted your employee engagement.
Sure. And I think just to echo what Sarah and Nikki have said, about 5 years ago, we went through the process of reviewing our entire community investment program. And we started with the question of what's important to society in Australia and New Zealand, and what's important to our team members. And we tried to align on those things before making decisions on what we give to and how we give. And then ultimately worked on a range of programs that fit within the business. So one of the very simple fundraising initiatives, for example, was working on dessert promotions, which helps promote the product that we have, gives people something that they're passionate about designing, and then a simple giving culture can be added to that, at the end of every bill or conversation around the bill, which gives you an opportunity to engage further with your customers. So you're not just whacking an extra charge on a dessert item, you're actually having a conversation with the customer about decisions they might make to have the dessert or not. And it's a discretionary item, so it's not forced on people. It's not a checkbox. It's something that's a little bit more engaging than that. And that's one of the methods that we use to fundraise. But I think that the culture of giving comes around in cycles for us. We go really hard every 2 years with a Pacific-wide fundraising activation that ends in one of the greatest staff engagement exercises I've ever seen. And it happened pre-COVID and probably might not happen for a little while now, but effectively teams brought together within our properties and they fundraise all year to reach a certain target to participate in this great event. And the event is a 3-day offsite that's open to members of our team right across the Pacific region every 2 years. So you build excitement and energy over a very long-term period. You build a culture of fundraising internally, and then you reward people through their fundraising initiatives. And what that also does is allow you that long-term and regular storytelling opportunity, which Nikki just mentioned, around sharing the story, sharing the impact. And that's something that we've worked really, really hard on trying to capture. And we did that in quite an interesting way, in that when we formed partnership with various organisations, we said to them, give us one program to focus on within your organisation so that we can tell the story at its current point, and then refer back to it as the money comes through and the investments are made from our people. And that's worked really, really well to just help bridge the gap between the fact that we have 5 partners that we work with, which is quite a lot, to be able to tell a specific story within each of those partnerships. And I think that's been really important for us.
And that's been important then, sharing that across your organisation to maintain the motivation for your people to continue their involvement in the fundraising and in the charitable support that you offer.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
So Sarah, you've had a moment to think, and Nikki, you've got another moment to think, because impact measurement is a very big, it's a very big component of our discussions these days around giving and understanding how my donation has contributed to making a difference, because that's why we do it. We want to make the world different, a different place for all sorts of experiences, and generally that's driven by an individual's personal experiences too. So what is it at KFC do you do that helps you understand what the impact of your efforts is, and how do you measure that?
Sure. So I guess the first point would be that, we very much rely on our partners, and as part of our onboarding each of these partners, we talk about, okay, take me through what's the social return on investment. So for example, every dollar you raise does X amount, so that we can have really clear, tangible ways to explain to our team and to our customers who are donating what their donation will actually do. Because quite often the money goes in the pot and people are like, I don't even know what I donated for. And so one way we do this, and I think it needs to start inside out for us. So if your team members understand it, they're going to be easily able to articulate that to a customer during an order process, for example, or if they're out doing their fundraising activities. It could be, restaurants are doing everything from like car washes to rallies, car rallies. Some of our franchisees have done really creative stuff, but it's always bringing it back to, okay, we raised X amount of dollars and this did this. And the way we do that is through infographics, because if you think about the cohort of teams that we have in our restaurants, with 90% under the age of 25, their attention span for social media and the amount of information that's coming at them is huge. I think someone told me the other day, it's like you have 5 seconds to grab their attention. And so we do this through infographics on what the social return on investment is, storytelling, little videos which says, meet Jane, who's gone through the White Lion program. Here's what it did for her. We talk about the number of people who have gone through programs, the number of new people that have been reached through well-being support services, such as through Black Dog and Reach Out. So it's about making sure you have that information flowing constantly, but you also need to not overload them with too much. And I think we're very reliant on our partners, and we're lucky because a lot of them have gone through the process of really articulating a very tight social return on investment. Otherwise, it can be complex to explain.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Sarah. And Nikki, what are your thoughts around measuring the impact of what you're doing?
Well, similarly to Sarah, we also rely on our partners to be able to tell us what the impact of our support means to their organisations and the storytelling. We do run fundraising campaigns, but we also use our assets and capabilities to be able to support our community partners. So if I take, for example, the Indigenous Literacy Foundation and our partnership there, the main part of that partnership is using our trucks and our network to get the books to 325 remote Indigenous communities. And, in just over a year, we've delivered 185,000 books to children in those communities. So, for us, it's about the storytelling of the fundraising that our customers might be doing over the counter in our post office network, but how we're using our own assets and capabilities, using our posties to deliver mental health information into letterboxes, into areas where digital literacy might be low, and so therefore, our partner Beyond Blue might not be able to use their usual marketing channels to get their services and resources out. So that's really important for us. We also use the model, used to be called the London Benchmarking Group, that is now referred to as the Business for Societal Impact. We use that in a more formal way for our annual report and the government as our owner and shareholder, to measure our social return on investment and our impact. I think one of the best ways that we get cut through, like Sarah, we face the challenges of trying to get this impact information in front of our frontline teams who are so busy doing their day jobs, but we know this is so engaging and motivating to them. We find a great way is to use our own people to talk about what they've done, and it might be a little podcast clip or a little 30-second video, and using the recipients of our programs. So there's some of the things that we do to measure our impact and share it with our people and our customers.
I think, the whole concept of social impact is one that is very much a part of the conversations. And I guess one of the things I would do, having spent many years on the charitable end of, corporate partnerships, is to really encourage the business sector to help organisations in the charitable sector to understand how they can actually measure the social impact in partnership with you, because often the skills, the capabilities and the resources don't reside within the charitable organisation to be able to do a sophisticated measurement of the impact. So I would certainly encourage yourselves and other corporates who are listening to the symposium to think about ways in which you can also support resourcing of the charities to be able to provide that much needed feedback to you, so you can in turn feedback to your people and to keep the efforts going. So I guess, you've talked about these sorts of things, but can you think about what might be the major facilitators within a corporation that would support and lead to a strong culture of giving? What are the sort of things that really work for a company to build that culture of corporate giving? Maybe Mark, let's start with you.
Sure. First and foremost, you need your executive team on board, and you need them to understand how important it is to the people side of your business, that there's an opportunity to contribute more than just what your day job suggests or your position description suggests. And that's a long journey at times, and you can do wonderful things through your partners to ensure that there's a level of engagement and understanding and education at that executive level to bring people on that journey. And we certainly do that ourselves. But we also aim to create a culture of freedom around the giving. So we do have formalised fundraising, formalised partnerships, but we also try to create an atmosphere within our properties where leadership teams can also make decisions on how they contribute on a hyper-local level. So it's like many organisations. You have corporate, national or international constructed commitments, and then you really want your teams locally to have the freedom to be able to work directly with their communities. And for us, of course, as I mentioned before, we have product to give away in terms of meeting space, rooms for auctions, donate food and beverage. So we've got all these wonderful things which we can give that are part of doing business that also make it quite easy. And so if you align your initiatives to what you do as a business, I think that makes a lot of sense and makes it very easy for the executive teams to be involved. And then, of course, you keep them informed and you communicate with them regularly, and you give them the fuel and the conversation starters to communicate to their teams and their networks and give them things to be proud of. And that just assists with it remaining on the agenda and articulated in a way that motivates people.
And Sarah, What about at KFC? What are the major facilitators that you see are important in being able to build that culture of giving?
Yeah, probably similar to Mark. It definitely has to start up at the leadership and executive level, but then it's really important to flow it through at all levels. And I think what's really worked for us is we have restaurant champions for the foundation. We've got market champions, so state and territory. We have a core group that meets every quarter to sort of talk about, okay, this next quarter, what are we going to focus on? What else does the team need? So that you're having an always on engagement level. I think the other thing we found is we previously used to go for 4 full weeks of fundraising each year. So in between that, there was obviously incidental fundraising, but really focused fundraising. And what we found is our teams almost got what I would call fundraising fatigue. So we've, over the last couple of years, we split it up. So 2 weeks at the beginning of the year, 2 weeks at the end of the year. And then, for example, we'll hold like a Foundation Friday or a Thoughtful Thursday, which we let the teams decide when they want to do that. And they really go and drive that foundation donations as well. So similar to it, as Mark was saying, we give our teams the freedom to really choose how they want to fundraise within parameters that are safe. And certainly during COVID, we needed to do that more. The other thing I'd say is we have, we're a network of over 60 franchisees. So we're 96% franchise owned. And our franchisees, I mean, they are so engaged in the foundation. One of our franchisees for a few years now has raised something like, I think it was over 600,000 a couple of years ago, doing a car rally, which was going through country Victoria and all these vintage cars. And we had our, 3 days is about raising awareness. People sponsored to come in, be involved. We had our charity partners come at to the evenings and really tell stories and bring young people who had been impacted by their programs positively. And I think that always on approach is really important, but making sure it's paced and sequenced so it's not an overload of information. We often talk about our people promise is, be your best self, make a difference and have fun. And those last two around make a difference and have fun. We want our teams to have a really fun, engaging way to fundraise, because just shaking a tin is not always the most engaging way. So we give them that freedom. And what we found is, across restaurants, across areas and states and nationally, everyone's vying to be the top fundraiser in their area or state, which is a little healthy competition, never went wrong, right? So it's really great to see that culture living and breathing.
Yeah, that's excellent. Mark, have you got something to add to what facilitates a good culture of giving from what you've already described a lot? Is there anything else you'd like to add there?
Look, I think the idea that everyone can participate is really important. And if someone on the front line is particularly passionate about a cause, one shouldn't have to go through multiple layers of approval to act and participate. And again, that's something that comes with communication, with experience, with a culture of giving. So if you've created that safe space or that environment where people feel confident that they can set up their own work and they understand that it can align or it can be different to what the company-wide initiative is, then I think that gives people the freedom to participate at every level.
Excellent. Yeah, so true. And look, the three of you have geographically spread businesses, as you've already mentioned, wide cultural diversity. But there's a question that's come from our audience on the importance that corporate leadership needs to place on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how does that get connected to philanthropy? So, Nikki, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question, and I think it's so important for us. We work so closely with our diversity and inclusion team and our people teams, and in fact, a lot of our programs are developed to help them hit their diversity and inclusion commitments in things like reconciliation action plans and access and inclusion plans. So if I take, for example, our community grants program that we run, which is where organisations once a year, small grassroots organisations can apply for up to $10,000 for a project that helps people connect to improve mental health and wellbeing at a local level. We absolutely put an overlay on the recipients of those grants to make sure that we've considered diversity, equity, inclusion, a mix of regional and rural and metro locations, to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, elder communities, to make sure that our community and philanthropy programs are also really shifting the agenda forward for diversity, equity and inclusion.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, it's a great example of where parts of the business can, be all brought together. There's policy sort of banners that sit across all organisations, but the culture of giving, when you think about it in its broader sense, of that time, treasure and talent, can really be captured by many, many different parts of the organisation, not just in the corporate social responsibility areas.
Sarah,
definitely. Sorry, Nikki.
I just was going to add, if I extend it even further, so, I think about our current accessibility plan, and, our consumer marketing team have targets in there around the diversity of representation in our marketing, and how we're going to to have second language in a lot of our communications into certain areas where English is not a first language. So trying to look cross enterprise, because I think you're right, the impact can be so much greater when you have that collaboration across different business units.
Excellent. Yes, certainly. Sarah, what are your thoughts around the importance of corporate leadership and what the importance they place on the diversity, equity and inclusion agendas?
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, I mean, we often say at KC, everyone has a seat and a voice at our table. And you can see when you walk into one of our, 700 restaurants, diversity, equity, inclusion is living and breathing. We have everybody from all walks of life, which is fantastic. And then obviously, when you talk about mental well-being and the cause that we're supporting, everybody at some point in their time will have somebody or be themselves impacted by mental health issues. And so we feel that through our charity partners, they are very much covering all aspects of mental health and providing support programs which reach, so many different cultures and diversities. The one thing I will say is White Lion, one of our charity partners, they really work on employment programs. So taking youth that are at risk and really going down that path of, whether they're in and out of the jail or living on the street or just, as they call it, couch surfing. They have nowhere to live. It's about giving them the opportunity and the pathway, which may not be a traditional pathway, to get, a job or the training and the confidence to come into work, for example, for one of our restaurants and other businesses that they work with. And so for us, we really love what White Lion are doing in terms of giving opportunities to those who sometimes just don't have the same opportunities as others in mainstream society and stuff. So they're a fantastic organization. And then if I talk about our leadership and our broader restaurant support center, absolutely, we link in with our people and culture team, which has a strong focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and it's just embedded into everything we do. So I think that's important to remember. So it's not just at your charity level, it's all the way through.
Yeah, it's that concept I said at the beginning about this needs to be intrinsic to the way in which we're doing business. And Mark, what about at Accor in terms of the leadership's focus around diversity, equity and inclusion and your philanthropic programs?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Sarah and Nikki have said. I think it's a great question from Ted. It needs to be on the agenda across the entire business. And one should hope that the executive team and people implementing these programs always have it on the agenda, because we've got a lot of work to do in this country to appreciate the diversity of it, starting with our First Nations people. And so there, across our 5 partnerships, there is a stream that aligns to the diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives, and that's intended, to help give greater exposure and emphasis on what we're doing across both spheres, to ensure that we're thinking about minority groups or others that are impacted in the community beyond the mainstream.
Excellent. Now we've got another question here that I'm going to read for our audience to be able to understand what we're asking. So from all of you, you're constantly being approached for support. I'm interested, this is from the question from the audience, I'm interested to hear how leading corporates manage support across businesses to include corporate donation, workplace giving, and client-customer engagement strategies. Partnerships can encompass all. So that's a long question. And let's, Nikki, throw it to you to start off on that one.
Sure, there's a lot in that, so I'll do my best and see if I can answer at least some of it. I think for us, there is a recognition that we want our community programs to create national impact and positive impact for our business and our customers and the community. So, we have our focus areas, our 3 focus areas, but what we also know is that everyone has got something that they are passionate about, and it's really important that people are able to support within the work environment things that they care about. And that's why some of our programs are not tied to our 3 focus areas. So our workplace giving program, for example, there are 428 charities that our people give to. They can give to anything that they are passionate about. Similarly, that people grants program, people of post grants program I mentioned before, that can be anything. It can be the footy team, it can be the kindergarten. It doesn't have to be aligned to our focus areas. So I think it's finding a mix of what are you going to do to create the national impact, but how do you make sure that people bring their whole self to work and can support things that they're passionate about as well. I think the other thing for us, and we've learned this perhaps the hard way, is to try and get ahead of regular times or things that happen that might result in a lot of requests for support. And for us, that's a disaster, a natural disaster, when we will get asked by our staff, by customers, communities, our big business customers, can we have free shipping? Can we have free mail? Can we have free parcels? So after going through a difficult period where we didn't have any sort of clear parameters in place, we put something to our executive to say, we don't want to go through that again. So we want to have an endorsed process and program that should a large natural disaster occur, this is what we're going to do, this is the process, this is the funding, this is the model, so that we can react quickly and equitably and make an impact as quickly as we can. So I think that's some of the ways for us that we try to manage some of the requests for support.
And that structure also gives you a chance to inform your people well in advance of this is the way that we will respond. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Sorry, Nikki. Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, probably similar to Nikki, we went through a period there where we were supporting both a global, before we set up the foundation, a global cause. But what we found is that in every restaurant and across every franchisee group, everyone had what I would call sort of their personal passion that they were supporting. And whilst that was really great, what it meant is that we didn't have that really focused approach. So our team members were confused. Well, what is it I'm raising? Is it for this or is it for this? And so we probably took a slightly different approach than Nikki's spoken about, where we really narrowed it onto a one cause that linked back to our core competencies and what we do for our team. And that's really helped us very much so. But then comes the hard thing, because, we get asked a lot for support from some incredible charities and local causes, which is sometimes challenging. And we look at ways that we can do that outside of the fundraising side of things. So whether it's, providing a gift basket of some crazy KFC merch for a raffle or that kind of thing. But separately, what we've also done is similar to what Nikki mentioned with bushfires. Well, I guess that's now almost 2 years ago now. It's gone around quick, this pandemic's mixed it all up for us. But we looked to set up a fund, and we actually did that through Good to Give, which was for natural disasters, so that we would have funding there and a mechanism to collect funds, both from our team members if they wanted to donate through workplace giving, or through even our global network under the Yum Restaurants banner, all the way through to our franchisees as well. So that's been a really, I think, a good learning for us, is making sure that we have that planning and process in place to capture those funds for natural disaster. But really, we've tried to really just focus on the foundation and making sure everyone is sort of going in that same direction, which is interesting when you look at how much we've raised. I think we're at about 5.6 million since we launched in May 2018, and versus what we were raising across multiple different charities, it's actually significantly higher because everyone understands the cause and are actually connected to it. So that's probably more to do with having such a young cohort of teams working for us as well.
Yeah, and I think great that Good to Give was able to support you in that. And Nikki, also you're mentioning that there are 420 different charities that Australia Post allows employees to support. And so having a platform like Good to Give means that that flexibility is on offer to the companies that are working there. We're running a little bit short on time here. There is one question from Dennis, who is in Uganda, that I'd just like to give him a little bit of help. How can charities like ours, which are just starting, attract donors and corporate giving? Mark, do you want to just take us out with that one?
Yeah, sure thing. And I'll keep it short and sweet. And my view is, if you find organisations that have similar values or a core proposition that aligns to your organisation and what you do, then that's the best place to be. And just work hard at chasing down the opportunities. People in the corporate world think they're very, very busy and important. And sometimes you need to chase down. So start with the values alignment and then work hard at it.
Yes. Yeah, very important. And I've always said in the fundraising world, there's only two answers. One's yes and one's no. And, it's better to get a no so you can move on to the next organization, which might be a yes for you. Now, I just want one quick response from each of you. You are now the CEO of your organization. What would be your wish to improve corporate giving? Sarah, let's start with you. You're now the CEO.
Oh, I like that promotion. I think for me, it would be, move a little, I think if you're the CEO, you can make decisions a bit quicker. When you have such a large network, which many of us do on this call, it takes time to engage everybody and move them forward. And I think that you have to take that consideration, but moving quicker is always good in my books when you're talking about charity and fundraising.
Excellent. Nikki, what do you put top of your list?
Oh, goodness. I think it is giving our frontline teams more time to be able to formally participate in supporting their community. At the moment, it's around the edges of 2 full day jobs that they have. So I'm sure the finance person won't agree with me, but I am the CEO now. So
yes.
some structured space to be able to do more than what they do today, which is already incredible.
Excellent. And Mark, you're now the CEO of Accor. What is your wish to improve giving?
Yeah, I would make a percentage of all profits be guaranteed to go into a fund, a pool or a surplus.
Excellent. Fantastic. So on that note, I'll say thank you very much to Sarah, to Nikki and to Mark for You're really, really excellent insights. And I hope that the people who are listening today are taking away some really key messages from some of Australia's, largest and most philanthropic companies. So thank you very much for your participation. And I'm now going to pass back to Jo Kelly.
Thanks so much, Sue, and also Sarah, Nikki and Mark. That was a fantastic discussion and great to hear what you're all doing to build the role of leadership in corporate giving culture, and fantastic to see really strong alignment with your values and also the needs of your people. I also personally loved hearing what you would do as a CEO. I thought that was fantastic, and maybe we should all start to think about what we would do as a CEO to input, different ideas into what we'd actually do to grow giving in Australia.